interfaith conversation with Ganellyn, and I'm excited to be with you today on this community page and hope that you will continue to help us build it and share. It's grown in just the last couple of weeks, and I'm excited to see where we get to go forward together. If you've had a chance to watch the first All Faiths podcast with the amazing Kay Anthony, you know that interfaith is such a beautiful space to be in. But in preparing for this community, and we're on Facebook and potentially expanding into some other areas, I've done a lot of research, and it's interesting to me to see what is showing up in the interfaith communities, and that there's still totally room for more conversations. So if you know me, you know that I want to do things that help in the world and move a needle. I don't want to just do things to be busy. And so I've taken a really slow approach to building All Faith Keepers. And so when I stay in that kind of ease, I feel like God is more a part of the project. When I start to take the wheel and get controlling and hustle and push and do all those things, then God's like, okay, do you want me to sit in the back or go over on the passenger side? And I don't want that for this community. So I've tried to be really gentle and patient in my approach to building this community. But thank you to all of you that have joined the conversation, expressed interest in this community, shared the first interview, and invited your friends. So a little bit about me. I felt like this was a good space to be in. You're getting the non-showered, real everyday Ganellyn. And I grew up in an amazing community where I feel like I saw firsthand in junior high and high school what interfaith could be. I was definitely one of those people that felt like I was the unique member of my faith in my worlds. And there weren't a lot of LDS or what some of my high school friends know me as Mormons in their life. And I had the opportunity to attend Catholic Mass with my friends and community church Bible studies in the summer. And my Buddhist friends would share their practices and their holidays and their beliefs. And it was a beautiful community to grow up in. And currently, so for those of you that are familiar with Northern California, I grew up north of Sacramento, south of Chico in the Yuba Sutter area. And currently the Feather River Temple, which is an LDS temple being dedicated in October, the public open house starts next week. And I have an opportunity to fly home next week and be with some of my high school and junior high friends in a tour of this religious edifice, right? This temple. And once a temple is dedicated, then the public, unless you are a temple recommend holder, it's not open to the public, versus our churches that you'll see in various neighborhoods around the world are always open to the public. So that's a little bit about me. And in preparation for this visit home and inviting my friends to join me, it's reminded me how much our faith can be improved and strengthened when we honor and respect other faith. My friend Boyd Mathison talks a lot about holy envy. And in my travels, as I've been able to encounter different cultures and different religions and different walks of life in different areas of the world, I've experienced that holy envy, where I watch on a few years ago, I had the chance to go to, this is one example, to the Middle East to speak at an event over 3 days. And to see the daily call for prayer was a reminder to me about my own practice of prayer. My friends that are Muslim that practice Ramadan reminds me, as I show holy envy of their practice of fasting, where my practice of fasting is at. And so for some people, when someone is different than you, it's not always comfortable, right? We don't always feel comfortable in differences. But I hope this interfaith conversation and the community that we're building will create some awareness so that our interfaith conversations don't feel so awkward. That instead of running from differences, we lean into them and we have some holy envy and respect. My friends that have watched this temple being built in my hometown in California have often texted me updated pictures as the construction has gone on over the last few years, and they call it my temple. But a fun little interfaith story that I just think represents so beautifully how we can show holy envy and respect to each other is that the land that the Yuba City Stake Center, which was torn down to make space for the Feather River Temple, that land originally was owned by a Sikh family who had a very specific religious identity. And when they sold that land to our church for a church to be built, the family members of this particular family were just so happy that a church would be built on this land. Well, fast forward all these many years later, the stake center had to be torn down. A new stake center was built for there to be space on the land for the temple to also be built on that land. And so the contents of the stake center, which is a bigger church building that can accommodate more people, the pews, the salt and pepper shakers, the water pitchers, that there were so many things. The folding chairs were donated to other community churches and congregations and community centers. And it was just such a beautiful example to me of how what we have and what we cherish, when we want to share it with others, it strengthens them in their journeys forward. And so these chairs and these salt and pepper shakers and these water pitchers that I had grown up going to events and church dances and worship services there in my stake center are now in other churches of other faiths. Well, that same Sikh family that sold the land where the stake center was built, where now there's a stake center and a temple, are so excited and in honor and holy envy that there's now going to be a temple on this land that their family once owned. And they have been part of the groundbreaking and now the tours that are coming in the next few weeks. And I just think what a beautiful, small little example where this community is showing the world what interfaith looks like. I think sometimes we are hesitant to have the interfaith conversations because we don't know how to find common ground, or we're afraid that it's going to come across like we're trying to debate or convert each other. And I have a friend, Pastor Logan, who is an amazing church leader of some home-based churches. And they used to have 2 church buildings that they would meet. And then right before COVID, he felt inspired to convert to home churches. And we've had some conversations over the years about interfaith. And he said sometimes in an interfaith community or effort, like I'm trying to build here on All Faiths, we want to only focus on what makes us the same. And we forget that holy envy makes space for differences, right? My Buddhist friends, my Muslim friends, my Jewish friends, my Catholic friends, my Baptist friends, my Calvary Baptist friends, my Seventh-day Adventist friends, we do have overlap and similarities as we are people of faith, right? But we also have differences. And I think we can water down the beauty of an interfaith community if we make it only about what makes us the same. There are differences. And instead of being afraid of those differences, can we have holy envy? Can we have respect? Can we be inspired by how others are practicing their faith? And then can we also have really honest conversations with each other in our sharing with each other? Can we share where our faith helps us, where we struggle in our faith? My friend Boyd Mathison that I mentioned earlier had this great interview a week or 2 ago about the de-churching that's happening across the nation right now, where churches in general are struggling sometimes to keep people in their activity and in their congregations and in their pews. And the guest he had on writes for an Interfaith blog, and he had talked about the fact that the churches that require more of their congregation, of their members, sacrifice, investment, connection, dedication, devotion, actually are growing. And the churches that are asking less of their congregations are shrinking. Isn't that interesting? In my faith, the prophet Joseph Smith has a great quote that I'm going to paraphrase, so I'm not going to say it correctly, but basically that any faith that doesn't require sacrifice doesn't have power to save. And so sometimes we want to make things so easy that we hope that fills up our pews in our churches. But what if it's in our devotion, in our sacrifice, in our struggle, that actually we stay more connected to our faith? That's why my Muslim friends, my Jewish friends, those that practice Orthodox faith, if you follow me on my social media page, the beautiful young new nuns that I met in Washington, D.C. during the 4th of July week in D.C., they inspired me by their devotion, by their level of commitment, by the vows that they're taking, not by their easier way, by their holding back or once in a while worship. And so sometimes in our efforts to be the same, we stop sharing what makes us different. And I just want you to know, if you feel inspired to invite one of your friends to join this community, that we're going to make space for our differences and what connects us. What connects us is that anyone that is featured here or spotlighted here, or the post that we're sharing, it is about recognizing that people of faith, when we link arms, when we support each other's faith, our faith is supported. That so often we get in places where we feel defensive, or we have to explain, or maybe we don't even know how to answer questions about our faith. That's okay. It's been interesting. I've been doing research on some of the faith influencers, right, in different denominations. And it's interesting to me to see some of the similarities of maybe influencers that would be found within my faith community. And that it feels like in many ways we're all being tested in similar ways. I think this is where we can find common ground. We're trying to figure out how to raise our families. We're trying to have hard conversations maybe around mental health, which is something I really try to lead out with, or LGBTQ plus issues, or devotion, or church doctrine, or church history, right? Those are things that I see many denominations wrestling with, those conversations, trying to have faith promoting experiences on a daily micro base, but also show up here on social media in more of a macro space. And so for those of my faith, I've really tried to hold space for the questions, the doubts, the faith journey, the faith crisis, the faith wrestle, while also holding a lens of faith as I have those conversations. My daughter right now is serving a mission for our church for 18 months. My son served a mission for our church for 2 years in Zimbabwe. My daughter is going to be 6 months in San Diego at the Mormon Battalion historic site in Old Town in San Diego. You're welcome to go visit. The lovely sister missionaries there, Sister Condi, will be there through November. And then for a year, she'll serve in Knoxville, Tennessee, proselyting or teaching mission. And she and I were talking about faith and deepening our faith. And she shared this beautiful learning that she's experiencing right now. That sometimes in all of our faith, we start out in this really simple place where faith just feels kind of idyllic and we feel all the good feelings. And then we hit bumps. And I don't care if you identify as Jewish, Muslim, Catholic, Mormon, Episcopalian, Seventh-day Adventist. I think if you're on a faith journey, that conversion process is messy. And so she was talking about how we can start in this very simplified faith. And then there's something that happens maybe in our lives where we are hit with some doubts, hit with maybe a life trauma or questions. For her, she realizes like you commit to serving God for 18 months and talking about your faith. then you start to ask some deeper questions. And so in that middle wrestle, what are we doing? Sometimes we can become so open-minded that our minds like fall out. This is what she shared with me, and it was so wise. And then sometimes we can get so myopic that we're like looking at our faith through a straw, and all we can see is these little points, and we get tunnel vision. She talked about if we can navigate that space where we don't get so open-minded and so myopic, but we keep growing in our faith, we emerge out of that growth cycle in simple but complex faith. It's deepened. And my commitment to this community, and I hope over the coming weeks and months that it will continue to grow, because the more diverse we are, the more divinity I see. And if we can have conversations around faith that are authentic, that maybe we don't have all the answers for, that if we are caught in this middle zone where we're wrestling, where we're questioning, that as we learn about other people and their faith, our faith is strengthened. That as we have conversations in these spaces where we see what makes us different, we actually see that we all desire the same things as human beings. We want meaning and connection. We want to feel that hope. We want to believe in the best in each other. And for me, I don't know where I would be without my faith, without God in my life. All of the hard things in my life and all of the good things in my life are only made possible and better because of my relationship with God. And so when I learn about your walk in your faith, and if it's different than mine, it strengthens me. And I hope that I can be a source here on this community and in future projects and products that elevate the conversations, where we hold space, we protect, we sustain, and we support each other in how we're journeying forward in faith. And instead of feeling offended or defensive about those differences, we lean into that and we celebrate it and we have holy envy. And so that's my commitment. That's a little bit about me, where I'm coming from. I hope you'll share this video with someone that wants or is seeking. Maybe they're already a believer. Maybe they're devoted. Maybe they're committed. Maybe their faith is a rich part of their life. Or maybe they're on the outside, kind of looking in, wondering if they need faith in their life right now. And they're questioning and wondering where faith can fit. Maybe you know people of your faith that are having those middle wrestles right now, where they've gone from the simple, but they're not ready to, they haven't come full circle to the simple complex, where their faith has grown and taken root. They're kind of wrestling right here in the middle, where they're feeling the myopic focus of criticism or trauma or triggers, or they've become so open-minded that they're not really sure where their foundation is. Please share this community with them as well, because I'm committed to having these interfaith conversations, and I'm excited to see how it grows. I have some ideas and some plans. Many of you have messaged me with ideas, and please keep those coming. But this community will become even more of what I believe it can be as it grows in its diversity. And so my prayer is that men and women and teenagers and single adults and people of all faith, all walks of life, will feel like this is really, there is no agenda that is hidden. The agenda is very clearly stated, and it is that all faith is welcome here. And as faith keepers, when we keep our faith and we support others in keeping their faith, our faith is kept better. And that's really the goal. That's the goal here, is to have education so that we have awareness. And when we have education and awareness, we don't feel the barriers. We have the conversations in our workplaces, in our communities, at the gym, right? We start to get curious with each other, and we get excited about learning and understanding each other better. And I know that the friends of mine that are faith keepers in their faith, that is different than my faith identity, have celebrated me in my faith and my unique experiences with my faith. And so as much as I've been given that gift, I want to give it back. And that's the goal of this community. So thank you for those that have joined us live. If you have watched this video on the rebroadcast, please post in the comments if you feel comfortable what faith you identify with, and tag a friend that may be interested in having interfaith conversations. This is not going to be a space about converting anyone. It's about education and connection, about really finding our divinity through the diversity of this community, and not being so afraid of what makes us different. In fact, I hope, will start to see that there's such beauty in that. But also that we all have so much more in common than we often realize. We may dress different, we may worship different, we may vote differently, we may eat differently, but as human beings, I think especially as people of faith, we have so much that can connect us, and we can show up in that compassion and in that holy envy. Thank you for joining me today. Please share this. Please help build this community. In just a couple of weeks, we're just growing like the little engine that could. We're almost, I think, up to 300 people on our little community, which in Instagram land is very tiny, but I know this is a direction I've had from God, and to do it in an easy, gentle way invites God to be a part of it. And so I hope you'll help me. I'm learning. I'm literally approaching this with complete curiosity. I have some understanding, but I have a lot of gaps. And there's some faiths and religions that I feel like I understand more, and others that I am just on the tip of the iceberg, and I'm learning along with you. And so please reach out with feedback, with suggestions, with questions. Thank you for joining me. I'm Ganellyn. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I'm just so excited about All Faith Keepers and building this community together. Thanks so much.